In Brookland, Arkansas, the air was thick with more than humidity, it was heavy with desperation. The fields stretched out beneath a sky tinged with worry, every acre a silent witness to the mounting anxiety of those who worked the land. Here, the land and the people seemed to breathe in unison, both weighed down by an uncertain future. Inside a packed town hall, farmers gathered not to celebrate but to plead for survival. The room buzzed with tension as neighbors and friends, many of whom had farmed these lands for generations, shared stories of hardship and fear. Their voices, usually reserved for the quiet of the fields, now filled the air with urgent questions and pleas for answers. Chris King, a farmer, looked into the news camera. "Mr. Trump, you said you loved us. I need to see the fruit of your love." His words echoed the sentiment of many, a direct appeal from the heart of rural America to the highest office in the land. For Chris and his neighbors, this was personal. Livelihoods, family legacies, and entire communities hung in the balance. This wasn't a rally. It was a cry for help from the heartland that had supported the very policies now threatening their livelihoods. The sense of betrayal was palpable, as the people who had once cheered for promises of prosperity now faced the harsh reality of broken assurances. Across the nation, similar scenes played out. An industry in crisis, the stoic image of the American farmer cracking under financial pressure. Families who had weathered storms and droughts now faced a different kind of threat, one that couldn't be fought with hard work alone. By September 2025, farmers faced calamitous losses, some losing up to 150 pounds per acre. The soil, once a source of pride and sustenance, now yielded only disappointment. Each empty row was a reminder of what was at stake, not just crops, but futures. The steady rhythm of farm life was replaced by a frantic dance with debt and uncertainty. Bills piled up, equipment sat idle, and conversations around kitchen tables grew more somber with each passing week. The crisis wasn't from poor harvest but from Washington's aggressive trade policies, especially tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. News of new tariffs and retaliatory measures spread quickly, leaving farmers feeling powerless as decisions made far away upended their lives. These tariffs, meant to protect American industries, sparked a trade war that hit agriculture like a hurricane. The storm was invisible, but its effects were everywhere. Markets closed, prices plummeted, and hope faded. When America put up trade walls, other nations retaliated, targeting U.S. agricultural exports. Shipments that once flowed freely now sat idle, and global partners turned elsewhere for their grain and soybeans. The very people promised prosperity now found themselves on the front lines of an economic conflict, their loyalty tested as unsold crops piled up in silos. For many, the question was no longer about profit, but about survival. How much longer could they hold on? Before the trade war, China was the most important customer for American farmers, especially for soybeans. For decades, this relationship fueled rural economies, supporting not just individual farms, but entire communities across the Midwest. The demand from China was so strong that it shaped planting decisions, equipment purchases, and even the future plans of young farmers hoping to inherit the land. In 2024, China bought nearly 10 billion pounds of U.S. soybeans, forming the financial backbone for countless farms. These exports kept small towns alive, paid for new tractors, and sent kids to college. Then came the tariffs. The Trump administration imposed heavy duties on Chinese goods, aiming to address trade imbalances and protect American industries. And China retaliated, squarely targeting American farmers. The news hit like a thunderclap in farming communities where every harvest was already a gamble. Soybeans were hit with a crippling 25% tariff, making U.S. crops too expensive for Chinese buyers. Suddenly, contracts were canceled and prices crashed. Overnight, the once busy trade route became a deserted lane. Shipments that once left weekly now sat idle, and grain elevators echoed with emptiness. By summer 2025, China hadn't placed a single new order for U.S. soybeans since May. The silence was deafening. This wasn't a dip, it was the erasure of a multi-billion-pound market built over decades. Generations of trust and trade vanished almost overnight. Experts warned these lost markets might never return, even if tariffs were lifted. The damage, they said, could be permanent. Once buyers find new suppliers, they rarely switch back, especially after such unpredictability. Brazil and other countries quickly filled the gap. The loss extended beyond soybeans. China also targeted pork, corn, sorghum, and dairy. Each sector felt the sting in its own way. Pork producers lost a key growth market, jobs were cut, and expansion plans shelved. Corn growers faced even lower prices. Many wondered if they could survive another season. The wall of tariffs sealed off American farmers from their biggest customer, leaving them isolated in a global market that moved on without them. Silos overflowed, incomes plummeted, and farmers felt sacrificed in a geopolitical chess match. The sense of loss was everywhere. The sense of betrayal grew as the reality of lost markets set in, leaving rural America to pick up the pieces and wonder what the future would hold. Trump's trade agenda promised to put America first by protecting domestic industries with tariffs. The idea? Make foreign goods more expensive, boost U.S. manufacturing, and create jobs. But global trade is a two-way street. When you punch, you get punched back. Farmers became the prime target for retaliation. China didn't tax American software, it hit the agricultural heartland, soybeans, pork, and more. Farmers became pawns in a high-stakes dispute, bearing the brunt of a conflict they didn't start. Tariffs also raised farmers' own costs. Steel and aluminum tariffs made equipment pricier. Tractors, grain bins, and repairs all cost more, squeezing already thin margins. The policy meant to help was making it more expensive to farm. Revenues collapsed as export markets closed. Expenses soared due to protectionist policies. It was like running a marathon with a sprained ankle and lead boots. Instead of bolstering the economy, tariffs backfired, leaving farmers caught in the crossfire. The trade war's mechanics left farmers with nowhere to turn. The devastation was clear in the journey of a single soybean. What once symbolized hope and prosperity for countless farm families now became a stark reminder of uncertainty. Each bean, carefully planted and harvested, carried the weight of a global conflict far beyond the fields of the Midwest. Iowa farmers once counted on China as a reliable buyer, keeping prices stable and loans secure. For years, this partnership allowed them to plan for the future, invest in new equipment, and support their families and communities. When tariffs hit, the supply chain fractured. Chinese buyers vanished, and prices plummeted. Suddenly, the market that had sustained generations was gone, leaving farmers scrambling to find new buyers and new strategies. Corn faced a similar fate. Record yields in 2025 created a massive surplus, but with nowhere to store or sell it, prices tumbled. The abundance that should have been a blessing became a burden. As storage facilities overflowed and crops sat unsold, farmers produced their best harvests only to find them worth less than the cost to grow. The hard work of an entire season, the long hours and sleepless nights, all seemed to count for nothing as profits evaporated. The ripple effect spread. When farmers earn less, they spend less. Every dollar lost on the farm meant less spent at the local store, the feed mill, or the repair shop. Local businesses, equipment dealers, and diners all felt the pinch. The economic pain radiated outward, touching every corner of rural life, from the family-owned diner to the hardware store on Main Street. The trade war hollowed out rural communities, not just farms. Once bustling towns grew quieter, and the sense of loss was felt in every empty storefront and silent street. Lenders grew wary, tightening credit as commodity prices crashed. Farmers who had always paid their bills on time now faced new scrutiny and tougher terms. Many farmers who were once financially stable now faced bankruptcy and foreclosure. Generations of hard work and tradition were suddenly at risk of being lost forever. The dream of passing down the family farm turned into a nightmare of debt. For many, the legacy they hoped to leave behind was replaced by uncertainty and heartbreak. The pain radiated through every corner of rural America. Children watched their parents struggle, and the future of these communities grew more uncertain with each passing season. The crisis threatened not just livelihoods, but the future of entire communities. The ripple effect of lost markets and falling prices left scars that may take generations to heal. As export markets vanished, farmers' expenses soared, leaving them with tough choices and mounting uncertainty. Fertilizer, seed, and diesel prices nearly tripled, with fertilizer alone eating up a third of farm budgets, squeezing every dollar tighter. Tariffs on steel and aluminum made machinery and repairs even more expensive, putting new equipment out of reach for many. Farmers held on to aging equipment, risking breakdowns, costly delays, and lost efficiency in their daily work. Bankruptcies in agriculture nearly doubled between April 2024 and March 2025, devastating rural communities. Hard work and abundant crops couldn't overcome upside-down economics or the relentless pressure on family farms. The promise of prosperity felt like a cruel joke as costs rose, profits disappeared, and hope faded for many. When the US lost China's soybean market, Brazil stepped in overnight. Brazilian farmers ramped up production, signing long-term deals with China and enjoying record sales. China invested in Brazil's infrastructure, making the shift permanent. Even if tariffs ended, American farmers would struggle to reclaim lost ground. Other nations, Argentina, Canada, Australia, also filled gaps left by US exports. America's image as a reliable trading partner was damaged. The trade war didn't just pause trade, it helped rivals capture America's most valuable customers. For US farmers, watching competitors profit from their pain was the bitterest pill. The global marketplace had moved on, leaving American agriculture behind. As the crisis deepened, the Trump administration launched massive bailout programs for farmers across the country, aiming to provide urgent relief. Billions were distributed, but for many, the payments were only a fraction of their actual losses, barely covering mounting expenses. Aid often favored large agribusinesses, leaving smaller family farms struggling to survive and feeling overlooked. The checks were a short-term fix, not a real solution to the deeper problems facing rural America. Farmers didn't want handouts, they wanted stable, open markets and the chance to compete fairly. As Senator Jerry Moran put it, farmers want trade, not aid, echoing the sentiment of many in the heartland. Government payments kept some afloat, but couldn't replace lost customers or restore the trust that had been broken. The real solution lay in rebuilding global trade relationships, not endless bailouts or temporary fixes. Despite hardship, many farmers remained loyal to Trump, believing the pain was part of a greater plan. But as the trade war dragged on and promised deals never materialized, loyalty began to fray. Voices of desperation grew louder, shifting from sacrifice to feelings of betrayal. The farming community split, some still supportive, others warning of a new farm crisis. The heartland was left deeply divided, torn between hope and harsh reality. What farmers want is simple predictability, reliable markets, and fair trade agreements. The road to recovery won't be paved with bailouts, but with restored trust and open markets. Farmers need customers, not charity.